It's New York. It's the 70s. Two things are happening that are still being discussed today. A television series is premiering that will change the landscape of, television as we know it. And a real estate mogul is taking over the hotels of New York by storm. Those are both happening around the same time, and that is what we're discussing today in our double feature. Two movies we are talking about today, both of them set in 70s New York, about the rise of empires, and those empires are still alive today. We're talking Saturday Night, the 90 minutes leading up to the first ever episode of Saturday Night Live, and The Apprentice, Ali Abbasi's film about Donald Trump and Roy Cohn. Hey, fun times all around. Two movies that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing. It stars actors that people like, doing stuff that is very innovative in the culture we are a part of today. So, two films. Let's talk about Saturday Night first. This one interested me a little bit more just because I like the cultural cachet of Saturday Night Live more than I do the other movie. I am not an avid watcher of Saturday Night Live. I will see a clip if it comes across my feed on any of the various social media platforms, but I don't actively watch the show. I don't think the show holds up very well, and I don't think it's that interesting of a thing. But what do I love more than anything when it comes to biopics? I love a creator just so in love with a concept that it's insane they're making the concept about it. This is the type of movie I enjoy where it's somebody just jerking themselves off for just loving something so much. This is from Jason Reitman. He is the son of Ivan Reitman, who is of this era too. Ivan Reitman is just huge fan of Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, these guys. He loves them. So of course Jason's gonna love them too. So make the movie about your dad's friends. Do it. I'm not gonna stop you. I think that's a fun idea. I love that your career has somehow just become ripping off your dad's stuff. That's really cool. But it is 1975. We are leading up to the first episode of Saturday Night airing live. What does that look like? It looks like The Muppet Show. That's what this looks like. And yes, Jim Henson is featured in this, but it's just like the behind-the-scenes chaotic nature of a producer named Lorne Michaels trying to get his, monkeys wrangled together so they can perform at the circus. It is an interesting concept. Do I need to see it? Probably not. Like, that's not going to change how I feel about the show or give me some new insight to these people, because this movie does not care about the inside of this people. It's more like watch as history is made. You're witnessing the birth of television's greatest giant. We're going to take pot shots at Milton Berle throughout this entire piece. We are witnessing the rise of an empire, and it starts off when nobody believes in you. Okay, sure. If you're going to tell me nobody believed that Saturday Night Live was going to take off, that's fine. If that's the premise of your movie where Lorne Michaels is the underdog and he's fighting against everybody, fine. Look, it's not going to be perfectly accurate. The surviving cast members who care about this thing are going to praise and be like, oh, it's perfect. This is exactly how it went. I say that because that's what Dan Aykroyd did. And I'm like, sure, fine. It's such a weird piece to make because I get why you do it. I do get why you do it. It's a piece of cultural history that changed television. We use that loosely. And it's actors playing other actors. And that's always something you can gravitate towards and enjoy. And a chaotic nature where it's 90 minutes leading up, that can be fun. We have to wrangle everybody together. It means there's going to be continuous takes, a lot of energy going on all the time. And that's what it is. This show depicts it, or this movie depicts this entire 90 minutes as we have nothing planned. We're over schedule. Everyone's against us. We don't have a locked in script. There's too much going on. And I'm sure that is part of it. And we just movieify a lot of the aspects going on here. But that's not a problem. If you have a lot of young, talented actors willing to go on this journey and play these people in a fun setting, that is half the battle. Making this story entertaining is half the battle. And I think for the most part, they do it. The story itself, it's fine. Where this really shines is in three aspects for me. Number one is the score. incredible. Perfect use of like chaotic energy, using like piano keys to like tell time and just like move the story forward. It's amazing. The second thing is long continuous takes. You have talented young actors, we'll get to them in a minute here. Give them stuff to do. And you do. There is constant movement, constant framing techniques. It looks really interesting. I believe this is shot on 16mm, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they use a specific type of lens for this. It looks good. I don't think it looks as like stylized as another film we're going to talk about, but it looks very interesting and compact and has a very unique approach to what it's doing. And I like that. And the reason this works is the actors. I don't think there's a miscast person in this cast. Now, I don't think we're going to go through each individual person because they are all very good at what they're doing. Each person in like the cast, each producer, each character within the film gets a moment to shine. Like every single one of like the original members gets a moment. Lorne gets a lot to do. Rosie gets a lot to do. We spend a lot of time with these characters and all of them are good. There isn't one that I'm annoyed is in here where I'm like, oh, you really like casted them here. They work well. There are so many like standouts in my opinion. I think everyone playing like the cast members is great. Rachel Sennott, I love her. I think she's fantastic and she gets a lot to do here. It's kind of interesting, like she doesn't play like the huge comedic foil, which I think is like what you'd want her to do. But no, she gets like some really interesting, just like quieter moments, which I appreciate, which is really going to help her repertoire as an actor. Gabriel LaBelle, I think he might be the youngest person in this cast. Like he is like 21 years old when they're filming this. He's playing Lorne Michaels. Gabriel LaBelle is 22 years old now. He's played Steven Spielberg and Lorne Michaels. And he's played them like with the commanding presence that he is the central focus of any room he is in. I do not understand how you find this talent and how he is so captivating, but he is the actor of his generation. In my opinion, he is becoming that guy. The solid character actor that you can slide into any time period, any kind of story, and he's going to make it work. He is incredible. He is incredible in this movie. I love everybody in this so much. I think Andrew Barth Feldman gets some really quiet moments. Like there's one sequence in particular where he gets a huge chance to shine and it becomes like a really cool performance. And Cooper Hoffman, another one you're like, this kid, he is doing the model that his dad made popular, which is just taking these roles and every time he's on screen, you're like, this is the star of the scene. And when you're in a movie with an ensemble where that is everybody, you literally have actors playing Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase, right? Those are performances and actors that are going to go over the top. When you have like the behind the scenes people shining is just as well, man, is it cool. I love it. Like it's really well considered. And maybe that's like the problem where it's more like you have to have like the cultural awareness of what SNL is to truly like understand or get into what we're doing here. Not that that's a bad thing, because you do. Like you're not going to this movie if you're not like aware of the concept, you know. I don't think you're gonna stumble into this one, but it's like, oh, would John Belushi look cool in a bee costume? That'd be kind of dumb. He doesn't want to wear that. Well, okay, you know. Or like, what if we have a scene where like Milton Berle just like talks to Chevy like, you're never going to be the face of television. Nobody wants to see you on television. Chevy Chase, nobody wants to see you. Well, really? Do you think so? Or like, no one's done a show like this before? I do like the contrast they do. There's one really good sequence where they need to find like a lighting director. So you see like the chaotic energy of what Saturday night is going to be. And then Lorne goes to like another like floor in like the NBC offices. Goes to like another show that they're doing, which is like a variety show, and you just see like the contrast of like, this is what we're not doing. It's dark, it's grimy, it's low budget, and you see like the bright spectacle colors of what like 50s and 60s television was, and how we're moving away from that. That is probably the most well-respected aspect of what this movie did, presenting like why this is a counterculture programming show. That's where you see it. The rest of it is just like, look at these kids smoking and on coke and just having like fun, being sexy and flirtatious with each other, and like a humpy Dan Aykroyd at every corner. Like it's interesting, but when you're trying to say that this show like changed the culture, you have to present that, and they kind of only present it in one moment. The rest of it is just, we're going to make history, everybody. Look around you, we're going to make history. They have Jim Henson in this. You know I'm a fan of Jim Henson. I think what they ask him to do, whatever. Like that performance is fine. Again, it's the kind of thing where you're like, we don't have to like talk up this particular performance because we all know what's going to happen to him and his career. Interesting. But the movie does give a lot of like Muppet Show vibes of like Kermit wrangling everybody behind the scenes before they go on stage. And that's fine. That's pretty cool. I think that works for this particular story. I just wish it wasn't so like in its own ass about everything it did, and kind of just tried a little more to like say less about like how we are building an empire and more make it like personal with the people. It only gets personal for Lorne. I don't think it gets personal for any other character in the movie. They are just caricatures of what we know they are going to be. And that can be enough for some people. For me, I'd like more. Because I see the caricatures every time you turn on an episode of SNL. Give me something a little deeper. Just a little deeper, you know? But it looks great. Well lit, well shot, well directed, well acted. Like, it is a solid film that I enjoy. So, Saturday night, I am going to give a 6 out of 10. Now let's move over like to another street or another borough in New York and talk about The Apprentice. This is the story of how a young Donald Trump became the man he is today. And this is releasing like a month before a major election in American politics. So I understand if you don't want to see this. Like, I get it. It is a interesting watch, to say the least. It's going to be very controversial, I think, because I know like the Republican Party like tried to make sure this wasn't released in like American theaters. I'm in Canada, so I don't know like what if that would be like the same thing or not. I get it. Like, this is literally a movie that depicts like a presidential candidate like today, not somebody from like the time period, but today, doing some heinous shit that makes him look like a criminal and an idiot. And that's what this is. It's like a Frankensteinish monster being created from like this mad scientist, and then he like loses control of his creation and it like takes over the world. That is like what we're doing here, and that's kind of fun. But also, like, what if there was like no self-awareness within that monster and it had no like empathy or apathy or care in the world? It was just like a hungry, world-devouring creature, like the Blob, that just like, it's like this anamorphic creature that just like keeps rolling on and destroying everything in its path, unaware of like what it's doing, but still wants to like have like the like level of like cool. I don't know. Why am I describing Trump? If you don't know Donald Trump at this point, what are you doing? You know, he is a guy who is in everything. Another cultural touchstone that was around in the 70s and is around today. It's Sebastian Stan, who is having a great year. Like, we just talked about A Different Man very recently. An incredible performance. I don't know which performance I like more. Like, I think what he does in A Different Man is incredible and very neurotic and closed off. This is the opposite, where he is embodying a guy. He like gets the movements perfectly. He gets the mannerisms perfectly. Doesn't sound perfectly like him, but he is so close to it. So close to perfect that you're just like, okay, you're nailing it. You're getting what this is supposed to be. You understand that you're a joke and this guy sucks. So you're playing it like that. And it works really well with like the escalation of like, I'm just kind of like a schlucky guy who wants to like get out of like the IRS or like whatever. We're being like indicted and sued. If you can just help me do that, that's great. And then like just building up the career to what he's going to be. It's amazing. It's really interesting. And Jeremy Strong is also in this. He plays Roy Cohn. Let's get this out of the way. This movie's about two guys that suck. You know, Donald Trump sucks, Roy Cohn sucks. But they play Cohn with such empathy. Where you're like, okay, I guess like we should feel bad because he had to lie his whole life about who he was. And that does suck. Like, if you don't know the story of Roy Cohn, I don't think we need to get into it. Like, there's another project recently that talks about Roy Cohn called Fellow Travelers. If you watch both of these, you're going to get like very different interpretations of that guy. But how Strong plays it is just like this vampiric creature that like appears from the darkness and starts like stalking this guy with like this allure of like, look at this pure blonde virgin guy. Like, I can just shape him and morph him into like my creation. And he does that and he's like, oh shit, the monster's loose. I created something terrible that's going to destroy the world. And that's interesting. And just like SNL, just like Saturday Night, this movie is about like, well, you are aware that 2024 exists and things are weird here. So we'll make references to today. So you're like, remember this is real and this guy still exists. You think you're ever going to run for office? He's like, why would I ever run for office? Office is stupid. Politicians are bad. I'll never be a politician. Like, we know. We know. You saying that isn't going to change the fact that we know he's a politician. It's kind of funny, but not funny enough where it's like changing my perception on this guy. I know he sucks. You don't have to call it out to me. Which is what both these movies do. Something I was thinking about while watching both of these. I watched both these movies in the same night. If you were to change nothing but the names of these characters, so it's not Lorne Michaels, it's not Donald Trump, does this hold any like relevance to an audience? Or is it just kind of like, oh, it's just homaging this or that? I really wonder that. I think like the name alone gives these a bump into something different, when if they were just like an original concept, would they be as interesting? Or is like the cultural relevance of both of these what give them their impact? I think it's that one. Because if you didn't watch Donald Trump, why would you want to see like an asshole guy just like take over New York? What are you getting from that, you know? But knowing he's real and he's still like a presence, that's where it's interesting. Both these movies have like a very like specific style they're going for. This one's more like trying to be like a cheap style VHS of like the 80s. Like it's got like a weird like VHS like horizontal like flare to it. I'm not sure how you like describe that look. But it's trying to make it look like it's on like an old tape that you'd find somewhere. It's using like very good musical cues from the era like that. It looks really good. It's almost shot like a documentary style, very like loose energy to the camera. I think looser in a different way than Saturday Night as well. This one is just more like we're capturing like this guy in like the real world. We're not like stuck somewhere. He is like loose on the city, terrorizing Tokyo like Godzilla. That's what it is. And that is a very interesting look. It also adds to the style we're going for here. It's supposed to feel like old and like retro and throwbacky. And it does do that. You know, the performances are very strong. I think Jeremy Strong does incredible as Roy Cohn. It's a really good performance from him. Maria Bakalova, she gets a lot to do, which I'm really happy about. That is the character you should write a very specific way, and they did it a very specific way. It is just an intense film, knowing 2024 and like everything that's happened before that. So if that is troubling to you, it's going to be troubling to you, you know? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, you should watch this. It's kind of scary and annoying, and it could either change how you feel about this guy or just reiterate what you already know. I want it to be clear. This movie does not like him. This is not a movie that celebrates Trump. It's more like, I can't believe capitalism lets this happen, is kind of like the thesis of this movie. It's like, this is what capitalism does. It makes a monster run rampant and destroy society. He gets to live like the sweet old American dream by destroying everything in his path. And that is true. I don't think either of these movies are perfect. They are very interesting items to look at with the cultural relevance we have for them today. And that is something to explore. You have two filmmakers doing two completely different styles of like throwback aesthetics. And neither of them fully feel like cosplay. But if you think about it for too long, the cosplay elements do take shape. Where we know that Dylan O'Brien is trying really hard to do Dan Aykroyd, and we are aware that Sebastian Stan is just picking up the mannerisms of Trump. There is interesting stuff in both of them. They're kind of silly at the same time. But for a double feature I had in one night, I walked away being like, this is at least an interesting time at the movies. And I don't know if I'll do a double feature like that again, where both these movies make me think about stuff, are interested in stuff they're talking about. But whatever. I was not the biggest fan of either of them. And I'll say this, The Apprentice is a more complicatedly basic film. It's not as entertaining. So The Apprentice, I'm going to give a 5 out of 10. Now, I do encourage you all to watch these. I think there's something to explore in them, even if you don't care for SNL or Donald Trump. Thank you all for watching this double feature. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.